The Making of World of Warcraft, a short documentary. Oh, you know I'm always down to watch some good old documentaries on World of Warcraft. Let's get straight into this. Nixium, I haven't seen him do a video like this before. I'm excited to watch it. Let's check out exactly what the history of WoW really is.
For 19 years, World of Warcraft has absolutely dominated the MMO gaming landscape.
Yeah.
To the pleasure and sometimes displeasure of many people. However, a lot
No
of
real
people don't
requirement
know
to
how
do
this cultural phenomena of a game came to be. The struggles,
Changed
the
my life,
hardship,
man.
the near defeats, and the woes that Blizzard undertook while making World of Warcraft. This game was a gamble, and it was a big one at that. One that could have cost Blizzard everything. And today, I'm here to tell you a story that's been relatively untold until recently. Today, we're talking about the making of World of Warcraft. And by the end of this video, hopefully you'll understand why this game is so beloved by millions around the world and why the people who made this game
Man, look at these guys. Look at these guys. Look at these guys. Just living the dream. A passion project. These guys are all millionaires now, but they're playing, it looks like Magic the Gathering on the floor of their office building. That's wonderful. Yeah, I know, actually, World of Warcraft started with the RTS, and that was the, like, original version of WoW. Was actually, they just took the RTS and changed the camera angle, and that was, like, the first World of Warcraft images. But let's see, he'll probably show them here.
Cherish it so deeply. But first, we do have to thank this channel's sponsor, Zygor. If you want the ultimate World of Warcraft add-on for leveling and Dragonflight or classic,
Zygor should sponsor me, man.
Guides, mount collecting, pet collecting,
Sponsor my
in-game
YouTube
progression,
channel.
just whatever you want. You need to check out Zygor, linked down below in the description. It is known as World of Warcraft's greatest add-on for a reason. Blizzard Entertainment was founded on February the 8th, 1991 by 3 graduates of the University of California, Los Angeles.
Look at that. Look at that. Look at those smiles, man. These guys were excited. I don't think any of I know our boy isn't there anymore. I don't think any of these guys are there anymore.
Those 3 people were Michael Morheim, Frank Pearce, and Alan Adham. Now, the company was originally named Silicon and Synapse, but they changed their name to Blizzard Entertainment in 1994 because, let's be real, Blizzard Entertainment sounds like a much cooler name for a game company.
Yeah.
Since the founding, Blizzard had enjoyed some
4 years
really
old.
great success as a small game development company. They were known for such titles as Rock and Roll Racing, which was
Lost
their
Vikings,
first ever
I think
game.
was one of their first
The Lost Vikings, which was their first big commercial success. Warcraft, Orcs and Humans, StarCraft, and Diablo. Blizzard had even begun to release sequels to their games because there was so much demand. And it was during the development of Warcraft 3 that Blizzard made an announcement that would change gaming forever. In 2001, at the European Computer Trade Show, or the ECTS for short, Blizzard announced that they were working on a new project, a game that was going to be a first for Blizzard, a gamble, in fact. But it was one that they felt was going to be good for the long-term success of the company. Now, keep in mind something. In 1999, Blizzard had just announced Warcraft 3 at the ECTS, saying that this game, Warcraft 3, was going to be completed in 2002. So now, at the time of this new game's announcement, whatever it was going to be,
or didn't it come out in 04?
Teasing in 2001, Warcraft 3, it wasn't even out yet. They were still neck deep in its development, and Blizzard was
I didn't know that. Wait, Warcraft 3 wasn't even out yet when they had started making World of Warcraft? I had no idea that that was the case. So they were doing both simultaneously? Damn. Yeah, 2004, I used to bully people who played it. I used to bully people into playing it. Believe it or not, I started playing WoW in 05, and I used to literally tell kids at school, I'd be like, fuck, what are you doing playing Madden, bro? Get on World of Warcraft. Be like, what is that? I'd be like, it's the best game ever. Go try it. Yeah, go try it. Why don't you fucking play a real man's game? No, really, I did. And any of my friends who didn't start playing WoW back then, I wasn't friends with them anymore. I really became closer to the guys who actually started playing WoW with me. Of course, because how could you not become closer to people that you're adventuring with every day? Killing 36 boars, going into Westfall, fighting against the Defias Brotherhood and the Dead Mines. I mean, of course, those are bonding experiences. Those are life experiences. You're going to be closer to those people for sure. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I feel they should revive those old games. I think they do. Don't they have a Blizzard arcade with like all the old games that they made on there? I feel like they do.
Announcing another project on the stage. Now, what game was this? Well, you guessed it. It was World of Warcraft, an MMORPG.
Yeah. So good. Look at that. Look at that combat. Oh my god. All 10 frames per second. What is with the weapon sounds? You hear that, like the like, they got rid of that. That shit's sound of the blades cutting through the air.
As you can imagine, reactions were mixed, to say the least. Some people were really excited. They were encouraging Blizzard to step into this new adventure in terms of game development.
It was a risk. This shit was expensive to make.
But many people were not so optimistic. Why was Blizzard, a real-time strategy powerhouse developer, why were they trying to make an MMO? Warcraft was a strategy game series, right? So why turn it into an online multiplayer game like EverQuest? Why not create a new IP entirely? And also, there already existed
From what I understand, I actually know that the WoW devs, like the guys who were making, Diablo, and everything, they were very much EverQuest players. Like, they loved playing EverQuest, and they used to always say while they were playing it, like, dude, we can make a game like this. We could make a game like this. And the crazy thing is, like, it wasn't just a bro story, like, hey, man, we should go on this trip and do this thing, and it never happens. They just decided, you know what, fuck it, we are going to make this shit. And damn it, did they ever make it. They made the greatest version of an MMO ever.
The MMOs on the market, and they were more in development. Did the world really need another MMO with more orcs in it? It
Jedi Academy. Oh my god, I remember
criticism,
that game.
And Blizzard took it to heart. One can only imagine what it must have been like for Blizzard during this sudden barrage of negativity being thrown at them. Many suggested that this might be the beginning of the end for Blizzard as a company. But that's not exactly
Had
how
WoW
the
failed,
Blizzard
it probably
team
would have
saw
been
it.
the end of
Chris
it.
Metzen, for example, Blizzard's vice
Chris
president of
Metzen.
creative development at that time, argued that the transition...
Dude, look at the humble beginnings. This guy is a fucking vice president. This guy's a vice president. He looks like he has the Asmongold set up. Oh my god. What a champ. Oh, he's a Star Wars fan, too. Sandman. What? What is this, He-Man in the background or something? I don't know what this poster is. Someone's probably going to comment below and say, well, tell me what it was. Look at this shit. The glory days. The good old glory days.
Blizzard's vice president of creative development at that time argued that the transition to an MMO was a natural progression from Warcraft 3, regardless of whether or not the new addition to the Warcraft RTS franchise did well. Again, keep in mind, Warcraft 3 isn't even out
Dude,
yet.
That's crazy. He was like, we're going balls in.
Talking about WoW.
Going balls deep.
Regardless of opinions about this new announcement, Blizzard was going full steam ahead. They announced that World of Warcraft, it was going to hit shelves in 2004. So they returned to their offices and they put those finishing touches on Warcraft 3, a game that they knew if it did well, it would pave the way for success for World of Warcraft upon its release.
I wish I played this game.
Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos was released on July 3rd, 2002 in North America. July 5th.
In 2002, I was playing RTSs a lot, but I was playing like the battle ones. Like I was playing Red Alert, like Command and Conquer Generals, like that kind of. I was really into those kinds of games. I didn't actually like know much about the World of Warcraft franchise at that time. Like the Warcraft franchise. My first delve into it was World of Warcraft. So I was back then playing RTSs, but never played the Warcraft RTSs, and I kind of wish I did. 2002, I was on Quake 3. Oh my god. Yeah, Age of Empires. Yes, Age of Empires, Age of Mythology. I was playing all those like nonstop. Oh man, on the family computer that could barely fucking run them.
In Europe, within the first month of release,
on an Intel integrated graphics
had
card,
sold over 1 million copies. And on July 1st of 2003, this success continued with the release
there was
of
a Lord of the Rings
Frozen
RTS
Throne
that I was playing
expansion
too.
pack for Warcraft 3, which sold over 3 million copies in the first month of release. Warcraft 3 was a monumental success for Blizzard. Arthas, the Lich King, Lordaeron, the Undead, Sylvanas, Mal'Ganis, the Burning Legion, Illidan. These things became common names and topics of conversation among gamers. The board was set. The pieces were moving. World of Warcraft was on the horizon now, and the hype couldn't have been more intense among the Warcraft community.
What the hell is that? I've never seen that cinematic before. Orgrimmar. Damn.
However, just because there was great anticipation and enthusiasm for this new MMO, that don't mean it was not met with some very strong challenges behind the scenes and along the way during development. A lot of World of Warcraft's inspiration came from the MMOs before it, the most noteworthy being EverQuest.
Yeah.
Many of the early World of Warcraft developers were actually avid EverQuest
They played it
fans,
a lot, that's what I heard.
playing the game and learning from it what worked and what didn't work. In fact, it was this obsession with EverQuest. This was one of the reasons why Blizzard decided to step into the MMO market to begin with. After seeing the success of games like EverQuest, it was obvious
like
that
EverQuest was hardcore as shit. EverQuest was like, you played that game, you died, you lost a lot of shit. EverQuest was like the hardcore man's. It was hardcore WoW before hardcore WoW existed. It really was. And what World of Warcraft did was it essentially created an MMO for like casual Andes. It was the casual man's MMO, and it brought MMOs to the forefront. It brought MMOs into what do you call it? Into like the regular man space, right? It was no longer just this like nerdy side faction of hardcore players that, you know, you had to invest hours and hours of time into. Now, we did all invest hours of time into Classic WoW and to Vanilla WoW, but it was because we just loved the game so much we wanted to play it all the time. It wasn't because it was necessarily necessary. It definitely brought, you know, retail back then, which was vanilla, was like the quintessential version of an MMO for casual Andes. And that's why it was so popular.
That MMOs were the future, and they wanted a slice of that future for themselves. The only problem is Blizzard was going to need help because they weren't exactly an MMO development company, right? So in order to help the company move in the right direction, Blizzard hired people like Rob Pardo, an EverQuest veteran and a key figure behind running the Legacy of Steel. This was one of EverQuest's most popular guilds. Jeff Kaplan as well was once a well-known EverQuest player. And both of these men were recruited by Blizzard.
Ian Hazacostas. Ian Hazacostas was a guild leader. Yeah, they've always done stuff like that. It's so crazy that they've done that.
And their feedback could help World of Warcraft surpass EverQuest and more. Motivation was really high. Development was well underway, and it looked very possible, at least at first, that releasing an MMO was not going to be all that difficult, especially since they already had a pre-established IP with Warcraft and Warcraft 3 and such. However, as development of this new MMO continued, that attitude quickly changed. As more technical difficulties and challenges began to present themselves with World of Warcraft's development, Blizzard began to realize something that they had somehow missed, and that was most companies don't make MMOs, and for good reason.
Expensive as hell to make.
These games are complex, from an engineering to just a basic gameplay.
And the technology that existed in 04 is definitely nothing like what we have today. I mean, you could imagine what they were working with back then to make a massive world that was constantly open. And you got to remember another thing. World of Warcraft did all this for the first time without loading screens. That was like a major deal. And honestly, it's part of what made WoW so great was there was this huge world that you could just run from one end to another and never see a loading screen. That was crazy back then. And they were doing all this on this old 04 tech. Props to them. It's crazy that they pulled it off.
Perspective and the costs. Let's talk about money for a second. To give you some perspective, keep in mind that 3D video game technology was still a relatively new thing at this time. So PC gaming companies were competing with one another. They were fighting to steal developers who were familiar with this new technology and who really could push it to its full potential. It was a small pool of talent with many companies wrestling for control of these people.
That's a lot of handsome men right there. Look at that. Wow.
And Blizzard was caught in this mess just as any other developer back in the
Not
day.
all heroes wear
There was
capes.
also all the additional
Some wear
quests
glasses.
for World of Warcraft that were unique compared to a game like Warcraft 3 or Diablo 2. Blizzard
That's true. Between
needed
continents there
funding
is,
for
but
things like the game's
minor.
servers to host World of Warcraft on. But their investment companies were not willing to give as much funding as what was needed because they were a little skeptical of this new MMO and this new approach the company was taking. Their developers could be potentially poached by other companies offering better deals. Server technology was far more outrageously expensive compared to other games they had made.
Imagine being an investor who was like, World of Warcraft? Nah, I think we'll invest our money somewhere else. Thanks a lot. That's not going to be very successful. You fucking ate those words.
Blizzard was hurting for money, and if it wasn't for the success of Warcraft 3 and the Frozen Throne, World of Warcraft might never have happened due to a lack of financial ability on the company's part.
They had to
That's
siphon
something
the
that a
money
lot
out of
people don't
their
realize.
RTS to make
Having
an MMO.
resorted
It's
to
crazy.
taking massive loans to continue the game's development, Blizzard remained laser focused on the goal. Yes, many people were against the idea of a Warcraft MMO instead of a fourth RTS, Warcraft 4. Yes, they were struggling to find the funding that they needed. Yes, there were threats from the outside to their team. But Blizzard did not give up in the face of these difficulties, these challenges,
through
the
it.
stress.
With champs.
They kept going. And it was because of this pressure that Blizzard actually began to innovate. Like, really innovate. You see, nowadays, most MMOs, they're just copies of one another. But Blizzard figured that if they were going to make an MMO, they wanted to make theirs different from the competitors. So during development, Blizzard shifted the focus.
There are so many things. Did you guys know there are so many things that WoW did that are now like standard in MMOs that we don't even realize? Like, you know, they were the first ones to make like level 60 was a cap. You guys ever realize that a lot of MMOs that come out today, level 60 is their first cap? Did you guys know that orange for legendary, purple, purple for epic, blue, and like gray, like these item colors, that was World of Warcraft. That shit wasn't like standard in the industry before them. They created that, and then every MMO that came after them, because they understood that people in the MMO genre recognized those colors instantly, started to use them as well. It's crazy when you think about it, but like all these things that we take for granted now, like we just think as, oh, all MMOs do it. No, they didn't before World of Warcraft. WoW did it first, and that's why all MMOs do it.
Of their MMO to a more approachable and casual friendly game. This was not going to be an MMO full of vast complexities like Star Wars Galaxies or heavy punishments for dying like EverQuest. World of Warcraft would be a game of going on quests and taking on challenges throughout the world, doing dungeons, raids, exploring this fantasy universe set in a 3D world that was visually stunning. That was the goal. Even today, classic WoW's graphics look absolutely beautiful.
They went with the stylized version of the game.
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
However,
They're timeless.
Understand that this early version of World of Warcraft that we're talking about right now, it was a very different game to the game that you and I know today. As an example, in the early days of WoW's development, quests weren't really as an important part to the game as they are now. Blizzard developed the starting zones to be full of quests and later zones that the players would explore, but slowly over time, the quests would just kind of dwindle out until there was none remaining to guide the players. Apparently, Blizzard at the time thought that quests would be a good addition to the game, at least in the beginning once you were getting started, but they would not be important to the overall gameplay. There was this thought that quests were mostly just going to be skipped altogether by many in favor of just mindless grinding or just dungeon spamming potentially.
Oh man, the questing is what makes it great.
Feedback came in during the testing that no, they were wrong. Players loved the questing system that was being developed. They wanted Blizzard to expand upon it, and the consensus was that World of Warcraft
Marshall
was
McBride, man, one of the fucking OGs. Look at him. Like, this is probably his first model. Oh my God, Marshall McBride.
Incredibly boring once the quests ran out in the game. It was through extensive testing and extensive feedback that Blizzard learned that quests were actually a
Some
key point
NPC.
in making the game more immersive and enjoyable for people. And so what began as a relatively large but still manageable project of, making quests for World of Warcraft, suddenly this became this massive challenge because they had to fill the entire World of Warcraft with so many freaking quests. It was ridiculous. It was also
Explains why some of the quests are just you got to go pick up some poop. Ran out of ideas, just have the. What are we gonna do, man? We got to put a quest over here. You see those elk that we put down in the, down at the end of the block over there? Yeah, just have the players pick up some shit. Really? Yeah, yeah. We don't. I can't think of anything else. Just have them pick up the shit. All right, we'll put it in.
also during this time that Warcraft lore began to take on a new life, mostly due to the efforts of Chris Metzen and his team. Because the quest system continued
Return of the
to
King,
be
Chris
expanded
Metzen.
upon, more story was needed to fill this world of Azeroth with things to learn and to explore and engage in. This was not going to be some dead, empty, and soulless world where the average player wouldn't understand what's going on. Blizzard wanted to tell a story with their game. They wanted to bring the world of Azeroth truly to life.
Quests did
not
that.
just the familiar area.
The quest did tell the story for sure. And back then, too, you got to remember, there was no like quest helper or icons or anything. Like when you did a quest back in vanilla WoW, you had to read that shit because if you didn't, you wouldn't even know where to go because there were no markers on your maps. Like you would have to read, the farmer would be like, oh, there's this massive wolf that's eating all of my chickens and you need to go kill it. If you need, if you want to find him, you need to continue down the road northeast. Near the end of Westfall, you'll see a red house, and it's right there. And like that's how you found they found shit. You literally had to go, or you went on Wowhead. And what was it, Quest Helper? The fuck was that website called that we used to go to all the time? Man, I can't remember it now. We used to go there and freaking figure out how to do the quest if you couldn't figure it out just from reading it.
Of Warcraft
it was a
3
big
either,
part of the immersion.
The whole of the world, from Lordaeron to Silithus. It was actually because of the challenges that Blizzard was facing
that's what it was.
that they began to put the world into the World of Warcraft. It was now a year, though, until the game's launch, and the game was still lacking in so many major areas. There were massive droughts of content around certain levels. The talent system, forget about it. It was completely broken. Some areas like the Undercity and Ironforge needed to be redone entirely because they were too confusing to navigate. World of Warcraft
Ironforge was vanilla.
Miles from the finish line. And you know
For the
what?
Alliance, at least.
They only had 12 months to get everything done at this point. The company was going to need to pull off a miracle or face a harsh reality. The reality that they were not going to meet their deadline. And what investors they did have were not going to be happy.
Shit.
During
end of
these
Blizzard
days,
before it starts.
all-nighters were very common for Blizzard's developers. These last few months, work on the weekends became the norm, and every member of the Blizzard team found themselves struggling to finish their work in time to meet the World of Warcraft deadline. The hype for Warcraft 3 had now faded. Morale, it was starting to decline among Blizzard's ranks, and it fell to the company's leadership to try to keep this team motivated.
Imagine you're putting in all this work, and this is a title, a style of game that you've never made before, and you, from what everyone on the outside is saying, this is going to be a complete fucking flop. And imagine you're leaving your family Saturdays and Sundays, working on this game that everybody says is going to fail. Yeah, that's fucking tough, man. That's tough.
Overworked, exhausted crew of developers. I can only imagine what it must have been like. Perhaps
nobody believed in
the
it.
critics had been right. Blizzard maybe was not suited to make an MMO. Perhaps they should have just stuck to what they were good at, making strategy games.
Imagine
World
if
of
they
Warcraft,
did.
it was coming together, but the lack of funding, the politics of the game development, the stress in the workplace, it was often grinding the game's progress to a snail's pace. The deadline was creeping ever closer, and guys, some of the most basic things about the game were still under debate. I'll give you one example. One would be the Horde and the Alliance conflict. Some developers like Alan Adham, he believed that the split between the Horde and the Alliance, that was a good thing. Two factions of players fighting against each other. They would just add to the Warcraft element of World of Warcraft.
It was definitely one of the coolest things. I remember explaining that to people. They were like, who are the bad guys? I'm like, other players. And it blew people's minds. They were like, "What? You could be a bad guy?" Yeah, that wasn't like a normal thing back then to be able to be one of the bad guys, essentially. And we all know now the Horde really isn't the bad guys; they're just the other guys. But still, it was crazy to think that you could be an orc instead of a human, or you could be an undead or a troll instead of a dwarf or a gnome. It was just like, oh my god, what do you mean? So the players are each other's enemies? Yeah, it was a crazy concept.
Argued along
One
with the
that no other
supporters of the
MMO I don't think
company,
had done at
and
that
it would be
point.
best for the longevity of the game's community. However, there were other developers, people like Jeff Kaplan, and they argued the exact opposite. Their position was that the game was new, it was untested. Why would you divide the player base right from the beginning between two factions, the Horde and the Alliance? Even in the lore of Warcraft 3, you know, the Horde and the Alliance came together, so why start with two factions? As far as him and his supporters were concerned, players should be able to play with whoever they wanted, regardless of what race they had chosen. This standoff continued within the company until mere weeks before World of Warcraft was set to launch. Nobody truly knows what ultimately settled this debate, but according to some sources, it was Chris Metzen. He argued that the spirit of the game ran all the way back to Warcraft, Orcs, and Humans, so this divide in factions, it needed to be present in World of Warcraft.
And back then, the divide was hard. It was a freaking hard divide. I mean, you couldn't even understand the other faction because, you know, they were either speaking Orcish or Troll, whatever. You couldn't understand them. If you had a buddy who played on the opposite faction, mind you, if you were on a server, you could not make Horde and Alliance characters in the same server either. So if you had a buddy who played the Horde and you were Alliance, you never played together. You couldn't talk to each other. You couldn't do anything other than probably kill each other if you saw each other. But that was so badass, man. Me and my brother started playing at the same time. He played a Tauren, and I played a Night Elf. And we could not interact with each other. But we were fine with it. It was just so badass. And I used to watch him play, and it was a completely different game from what I was playing. Like, it was a completely different experience. I saw zones I'd never seen before, quests I'd never seen before, obviously seeing Orgrimmar for the first time through him, and he saw Stormwind for the first time through me, or what was it back then, Teldrassil and Darnassus. Like, we enjoyed watching each other play, and we only had one account, so we'd have to take turns playing. But we would watch each other play, so he'd be sitting, and I'd be on the chair behind him in our parents' office, and I'd be looking over his shoulder watching him play, and then we'd switch. And that was how we played WoW for, like, first year at least of having the game, because my parents would only pay for one sub. But it was awesome. It was two different games. It was so cool to see.
Risks. World of Warcraft was a gamble, guys. Nobody knew what was the objectively correct path here. Everyone was stressed out. The decision was settled, and okay, we're gonna see what happens. Despite continued struggles, though, the launch date for World of Warcraft was set for November 23rd, 2004 in North America. And as the months turned to weeks, those weeks became days. Every overworked and exhausted developer at Blizzard sat at the edge of their seats wondering, what's going to happen next? Would Warcraft 3's MMO sequel prove to be a success?
Bro, it was either the end or the beginning.
Would the investment of so much money, so much time, and so much talent prove to be a giant worthless endeavor to the company? Blizzard predicted at the time that the game would probably maybe sell about 750,000 to 1 million copies.
750 to 1 million?
Maybe, you know, best guess, best estimates, maybe they could even get 1 million active players worldwide given time. Yeah. Keep in mind,
what they get? They get like 4 or something, if I remember right.
Upper limit for MMOs during this time. Like, anything beyond that was not just extraordinary, it was just considered near impossible. It ain't gonna, like, MMOs ain't that popular. Blizzard was not hoping for any sort of massive success. They were just hoping to at least get their money back to invest into more projects. But if they failed terribly, Blizzard as a company would be permanently damaged from the loss on this investment, perhaps to the company's destruction.
04.
4 years have passed since the mortal races banded together.
Still such a good cinematic.
United against the might of the Burning Legion. Though Azeroth was saved, the tenuous pact between the Horde and the Alliance has all but evaporated.
The drums of war.
The drums of war.
Once again.
Thunder. Once again.
Yeah. This dwarf, man. This fucking dwarf is legendary. still get goosebumps. This was freaking 2004, man. Still looks good. Really is the best MMO. Nothing's ever come close. This chick.
Blizzard's predictions had been completely wrong. They had assumed a small launch, possibly 750,000 players.
What was the number? What was the number? Tell us, Nixium.
But at release, World of Warcraft servers were jam-packed with players, filled to capacity with queues lasting hours upon hours that people were waiting in. This immense interest in World of Warcraft took Blizzard completely by surprise, to the point that the company was struggling almost daily to get new servers set up and online to meet the player demands. One can only imagine, perhaps it was during these days that it dawned on Blizzard Entertainment what they had truly just done. Not only had they created a new MMO for players to enjoy, they had created the MMO that has set the standard for all MMO games since.
Yep. Just imagine, like, these guys were EverQuest fans, and they literally surpassed the Master. They were the Padawan who surpassed the Master, and imagine what they were feeling when they were witnessing it happen. The insanity. Just like this many people, they didn't even know this many people were interested in MMOs, let alone were going to play their MMO. What a freaking blast of success they experienced. They must have been just on a crazy high.
In the following 19 years since its release, World of Warcraft has amassed
gaming rooms,
over
true.
12
We had just
million
gotten internet in my house
active
at this time.
subscribers at its peak. 12 times the number that they predicted. Over 140 million players have signed up and have tried and played the game. And World of Warcraft has raked in for Blizzard, get this, over $10 billion in revenue so far on their investment.
Awesome.
Their investment, it paid off. The stress had been worth it. Blizzard had changed the world with their creativity, and World of Warcraft was here to stay. With multiple expansions under its belt, with many more on the way, World of Warcraft continues to remain a powerhouse in the gaming universe. And it's our hope here on this channel, Nixium, that the game continues to have a long and healthy life.
True.
We hope you enjoyed this video, everybody. If you want to learn more about World of Warcraft, check out 100 facts about World of Warcraft you didn't know, linked on your screen right now if you want to learn more about the game in detail over the years that it's been alive. Either way, like the video, it helps in the algorithm. Subscribe if you want for more content, and we will see you guys with more content in the near future. See you soon.
Yeah, that was freaking great, man. That was so good. Look, I mean, hey, without risk, there cannot be a reward. And they sure as shit took a risk with WoW. And damn it, did they ever get rewarded. I mean, it just put them in a whole new category of game makers. Light mode, I know. Okay, yeah, calm down. Everybody always freaks out about light mode. Jesus, man. Yeah. We'd play EverQuest 5.0, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Maybe EverQuest, maybe WoW was the reason EverQuest kind of died. But, man, what a great documentary from Nixium. That was good shit.